more about general rules of conduct. So I didn't know, what the rest of the committee thought about this particular policy. I mean, it doesn't really say anything in it, but the only thing that I really was interested in, I guess, was the fact that it does say that general rules of student conduct, responsibilities, and rights are published in the student handbook, which is made available annually to students and parents of the district. So I just wanted some thoughts on that. Does anyone want to start?
I'll start. So I guess, is this another item that we could use if we decided to get rid of it as a policy to rescind? Is this another item that we could use as like a preamble at the beginning of the student handbook, or as something just informational on the website for general rules, since it is so general? And like you said, it's really just letting people know where they can find the rights and responsibilities.
It
So,
actually
just a
already
thought.
says, it actually says that in the policy itself, if you read it.
Right.
Craig, do you have any input on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, the next four, I believe, are changing from CABE to Shipman. And so Shipman does all the student discipline into one, whereas CABE has some specifics, carve outs. And I'm more comfortable with the Shipman all together, because that's what it makes it easier, I think, in communication with families. And I think the student handbook covers a lot. I agree with you, Diane. It doesn't say a whole lot in the policy that's binding, but I think that student handbook covers anything that's not in the student discipline policy. So
on our main website page, is there like a very obvious link to our student handbook? Or
it's on the schools. I don't
each individual school.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then parents are given that when they register. They're given the link to it.
I'm just wondering if on the main district page, if it directs the parents to, like, if you're looking for general rules of student conduct, refer to your particular built schools website page for the.
We don't have that, but I haven't heard of parents having trouble finding that, because I think they probably understand they go right to the school versus the district.
Okay, so I mean, as long as everyone's okay with that, I mean, I don't think the policy really says anything. It was just a note after I, reviewed both policies, that one was more of like a punitive nature, and this was more of like a general, this is our general idea about conduct. And I just didn't know if we wanted to have it say that somewhere else, or, if it already says it somewhere else, and this is just kind of redundant. So if everyone is good with advising that this is rescinded, then we can move on. Thoughts?
That's fine with me.
Yeah, that's fine by me as well.
All right, so we will then move on. So then the next item is 5090.3.4, out of school misconduct. And Shipman and Goodwin recommend repealing a policy because, again, it overlaps with policy 5110.4, student discipline, and they recommend one policy for consistency and legal compliance. Any thoughts or issues with rescinding this policy?
No issues from me. I'm, in favor of streamlining and, for the sake of consistency, so that we don't have one policy that says something and maybe it's contradicted by another. So I would be in favor of phasing this out.
Okay. So we will move on then to 5090.5, secret societies and gang activity. The favorite. So again, this one overlaps with policy 5110.4, and it's actually under section 3, number 31, I would assume, because that's sort of that refers to bullying. And so the 5110.4 doesn't have like a section labeled secret societies and gang activities, but when I reviewed it, it sort of to me, looks like it goes under like the hazing and bullying issues of that policy, without being explicit regarding secret societies and gang activity. Does anyone have any comments or issues with this policy being rescinded?
Well, one question that I have is, I mean, I guess what we're really going to is a strictly conduct related regime where we're not really looking at gangs. We don't have a big gang problem, thank God, and hopefully we won't. But I mean, I guess one way of looking at this is rather than treating a gang as a gang, you're just treating the conduct for its conduct, which seems fair as well. So I don't see any big problem with removing this from our code or from our policies.
Did anyone else want to jump in and say anything?
I agree with that. I think the simpler the better.
Mhm. Agreed.
I mean, I don't think that our district has any sort of gang activity to begin with. But so I think, in the future, if we needed a separate policy, we would just make one.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's, again, we're looking at individual student activities or whatever.
Mhm.
Okay, so that was 5090.5. So we're okay to rescind that one. And now we are at policy 5090.10, prohibited use of laser pointers. And again, this is recommended to be repealed because it overlaps with policy 5110.4, student discipline, for consistency and legal compliance. And that actually is named in the student discipline policy under section 3, number 30. It says laser pointers in it, so that there's no conflict with that. So we recommend rescission of that. Any comments or discussion?
Nope.
So now we are to policy 5090.11, concerns, issues, and procedures. Shipman recommends that the board repeal this policy. The policy does not address sexual harassment or sexual discrimination, but cites to Title IX. And I'm not even really sure what this policy, it's not even really a policy. All it says is student concerns and issues shall be addressed through a decision-making, problem-solving model to be implemented in each school. It sounds more like something that is administrative. And I don't know why they would cite Title IX when it has nothing to do with it. So they recommend rescission. Any further discussion on this?
No.
All right, so now we are up to policy 5090.13, married and or pregnant. Shipman and Goodwin recommend that we repeal this policy. It overlaps with the non-discrimination policy, which is policy 5020.1, which we revised on October 12th of 2021. And it states that the board will not discriminate on the basis of pregnancy or marital status, among other protected classes. And it does say it in 5020.1, it specifically says married or pregnant. Any issues on rescinding that policy? It's just redundant.
No.
Great.
No issue.
All right, so now we are up to policy 5100.3, public performances. Shipman and Goodwin recommend that we repeal this policy. It is not mandatory. In addition, the policy addresses procedural requirements more appropriate for school regulations, and they recommend that we do an internal review if we want to maintain the policy to ensure it is being implemented as written. So Wendy, do you happen to know if there is a regulation that contains public performances?
I don't believe there is.
I think that's kind of like an individual school administrative thing. So we can ask Craig when he gets back, but otherwise I don't have any issues with rescinding this policy because it seems like it's more administrative on a per building basis. Any thoughts or discussion?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. All right.
These are always so straightforward.
I
for the
know.
most part.
Only rarely do we get an exciting meeting. All right, so policy 5100.6, student activities funds / donations. Shipman and Goodwin recommend repealing this policy because it overlaps with the model policy school activity funds, which is policy number 3453, which we updated on 6/21/22. They just say if we want to retain this policy, they recommend internal review. Policy 5141 fundraising activities was adopted April 26, 22, along with an accompanying regulation, which was formerly in the 3000 series. So this is redundant. It's covered under the school activity funds policy number 3453, which we recently updated in June. Does anyone have any thoughts or discussion on 5100.6 student activities funds and donations for rescission?
No.
No.
Okay.
Apologize for stepping away there. It was a call I was waiting for all day.
Of course, right?
Scott, just real quick, Diane, a couple of these that are overlapped in other policies, and the other policies are under student instruction in the 3000 series. And what I forget offhand, I apologize, what the 5000 series is again. Is that instruction?
I
I
think
wonder,
5000 series is students.
students, what's the 3000 then?
I think it's
Backwards.
Business.
yeah, business.
Do we lose anything by, I mean, if we completely rescind these and someone is looking from a business perspective at this, I mean, should there be a reference somewhere? So that, I mean, should we,
So some of the policies after we have changed them, revised them, and adopted the new revised policy, if you go to our website, some of them still have the old policy number with the name on it, and it'll say under it, this is now policy, whatever number it is in the name, and so that you can refer directly to that. And then some of them will actually also have links if there's a regulation to it as well. It'll list the policy and the regulation, and then you would refer to it as that. So this particular one is in the 5000 series. And we already updated this one.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not advocating that we do anything in particular. I'm just wondering, like, as a cross-reference or, so people can find stuff easily, but if they're gonna find it, I mean, just real quick, I can't remember, is our policy online handbook, is that searchable by
Yes.
terms? It is,
It is.
okay.
So
Then I'm
if
not
you
as
go
worried
to
about it.
the district page has a search box in the upper right-hand corner, and it will search the entire site. So like
Yeah.
if you just put in, school activity, your search results will come out, and it actually lists the policy number that the term comes up in. And it also, wherever it's referred to. So you can find it in policy, but you can find it anywhere on the website using just that one search box function. I have tried it to make sure that it worked.
Yeah. But I haven't tried it, so I just wanted to make sure if it's easy
Yes,
to reference like that, and if it's easily navigable, then I'm fine with.
it is. It absolutely is. So I don't know. I think is it Rita who takes care of the website, but it definitely works, and it works
Okay,
well.
thank you.
I've tried to challenge it a couple of times. Truth be told.
Thank you. Yeah.
So and this was moved on purpose from the 5000 series to the 3000 series because it is under the students. Is that right? Or it was under students and now it's on 3000 is business.
It was under business, and at the time it was moved to students because it has to do strictly with students, fundraising activities of students.
All right, so the current policy that covers this is policy 3453, school activity funds. So the policy that we are trying to rescind is policy 5100.6, student activities funds / donations. So, but I did look at it, and it is covered under the policy that we updated in June. Is there any further discussion? Okay. So now we are up to 5120, student welfare / safety. Shipman and Goodwin recommend that this policy be repealed as unnecessary. The board maintains a safety and security plan as required by state law, as well as a variety of other policies that address the issue listed in this policy, and as noted in the references at the end of the policy. This is a completely redundant policy. There is no need for it. Is there any discussion on this?
No.
Okay, so now we are up to policy 5120.3.1, communicable and infectious diseases. They recommend repealing this policy because it is unnecessary. Provisions of Connecticut statutes, regulations, and public health guidance addresses the removal of students from school as related to communicable diseases. Further, the language in the policy is outdated and inaccurate as related to procedures for students with disabilities. So they recommend rescission. Any discussion on 5120.3.1?
No.
And the last policy, oh, we have to go back to the first one, but 5120.3.2 HIV infection. They recommend repealing this policy because its contents are addressed by a variety of other model policies, including student records, which includes a section concerning HIV-related records. Section 504 addresses discrimination of individuals with a disability, non-discrimination, which prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities, bloodborne pathogens, which addresses safety, and curricular exemptions that opt out of HIV instruction permitted. So they recommend rescission of this policy. Any discussion?
No.
Okay, so then we can go to policy. Sorry, my dog is making noises. So the first policy that I skipped is 5080.3, request for late arrival, early dismissal, or release of student for part of the day. Shipman and Goodwin recommend rescission of this policy because it overlaps with policy 5113, student attendance truancy and chronic absenteeism, and the accompanying regulations. This policy addresses day-to-day operations for late arrivals and early departures. They recommend internal administrative review and adoption as a school regulation or procedure. So I actually wanted to ask Dr. Cook about this particular policy because it seems like more of I don't know, sort of an administrative thing. And is it included in a regulation? I did, because we're looking at policy 5113 as a revision for tonight, I did review it, and I didn't find anything that discussed actually late arrival, early dismissal, or release of a student for part of the school day. So is that just something that's kind of like, you know, per building by the administration, or could you comment on
Student
that?
handbook, you know, in terms of who to contact and when to contact for absences is covered there.
Okay, so then there's no need for this
Correct.
policy because it would be slightly different for each school anyway.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, so then they recommend rescission of that policy. Is there any discussion regarding the rescission of 5080.3? Okay, so now we're going to go to the policies for review, and we'll look at policy 2240, retention of electronic records and information. And that has an accompanying regulation. So we don't vote on the regulation. There was also a form that went with it with the regulation, if you saw that. So with regard to the actual policy 2240, which was formerly education data records retention and is now going to be called retention of electronic records and information, there were some changes regarding the electronic messages. I just had a quick question for Dr. Cook. When you look under the part on the first page, it says use of electronic messages and electronic communications. On line 23, it says devices include. I was just wondering if we should say may include or just say include, just because I didn't know if we are still using like all these devices that are listed.
You know, I was glad that Shipman updated the terms to more general, because, you know, they had Kindles and Nooks and, and all this and like Walkmans. And I'm like, I don't think any of our students know what a Walkman is unless they, but we do use personal cassette players for, we use them for expulsion hearings. We use them for other type of meetings that might be recorded. So I think it's appropriate. I looked at this. We had Art Sickle look at it as well. So this is a good update. I felt like it kind of covers what happens. I think the wording provided works.
Okay, I just didn't know if it needed to say devices include or devices may include, because I wasn't sure if everything that was listed, we actually used, because I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah.
Okay, then there's no need for that change. Let me throw that out, throw out my sticky. And then I didn't have any questions about any of the other changes. Did anyone else have any questions?
Mm-mm.
And then there was the regulation that went with it and the form. Okay, so now we are up to policy 4119, reports of suspected abuse or neglect of children or reports of sexual assault of students by school employees. So in reading the changes that were made to this policy, very few changes, almost all the changes were a change from the terminology of him or her to the child. And I didn't see anything else. Oh, the only change that I wanted to, I think it was an error. If you go to the 5th page, line 133, where it says number 2, it reads, the employee shall also make an oral report as soon as practicable to the building principal or his or her designee and or the superintendent, or, and then it says building principal's designee. I think that's supposed to say superintendent's designee.
Yes, it should. I think you're right.
So I think that would be the change there.
Yep.
Yeah, I know you're right. Thank you.
Because then I followed it through. So the changes for this policy are all from his or her to child, or from his or her to principal, or his or her to superintendents. There's no other changes in this policy until you get near the end.
The only thing I would say, Diane, is still again in that number 2 that we were just referencing on line 134, they did not strike his or her designee
Oh, that's
following
right.
building
Thank you.
principal. So we should,
Yeah.
just for consistency's sake, strike that.
I was gonna say that and then I forgot because I was all excited about superintendent. But, okay, so then it should read, the employee shall also make an oral report as soon as practicable to the building principal or the building principal's designee and or the superintendent or the superintendent's designee.
Mhm.
So that would be that's just like a minor change.
Yeah.
And then, thank you for catching that. I forgot to mark it on my sticky.
Wouldn't let you be the only eagle eye.
So then if you go to line 372, under number 15, it says distribution of policy guidelines and posting of Careline information. That first sentence on line 372 is awkward. I think it should be annually, not annual. So
Agreed.
this policy shall annually be distributed either electronically or be distributed electronically annually. Either way, I think be distributed electronically annually actually sounds better.
I agree.
Okay, so we'll keep that and cross that. Just a small grammar thing. All right, so then the only thing I wanted to point out for this one, because I would like us to recommend this for rescission with a waiving of the second read because of the minor changes or just his or her to, principals or whatever, with the exception of the addition to at line 396, and there's another paragraph where it includes the, sorry. Because Shipman and Goodwin said the policy has been revised in light of Section 5 of Public Act number 22-87, which makes changes to the distribution requirements for the Board of Ed's written policy for the mandatory reporting by school employees of suspected child abuse or neglect. Additionally, the policy reflects the new requirements that beginning July 1, 2023, school employees must complete training provided by the Department of Children and Families, and that boards of ed must electronically distribute information on DCF's sexual abuse and assault awareness prevention program. And so line 396 to 400 is what that is about. And then again, 433 to 436. And then the only other change was just where they cited the Public Act at the end under the Connecticut General Statutes.
Mhm.
So if the committee thinks it's okay, I would recommend that we would adopt this with the changes, but waive the second read because it's not a substantial change. We're just adding in the requirement by law, and we changed like all the his or hers.
Mhm.
Does anybody have any comments about that or any?
That
thoughts?
seems reasonable. I think that's fine.
Yes, I agree.
Seth?
I always had this issue come up when I was policy chair as to what constitutes just minor changes versus what's substantive. And I think this one does fall under substantive. And I would caution that although we're trying to clear through and do a lot of work in policy and it's going great, and I'm not advocating we bog things down, I think the second reading isn't only for the Board of Ed. I think it's an opportunity for folks in the public to be able to comment. No one ever does. We don't get much, feedback on these from the public, but I do think, when there is substantive change, including statutory changes, that, somebody who may have some, maybe, hopefully there's no one that has any issue with abuse right now or something like that that's reportable. But this is representative of all these cases where there are substantive changes. I really think it's important that we do have to give it 2 reads, unless it's like an important thing that has to be fast tracked, just because it gives the public and the board an opportunity to just make sure we're okay with it. And there's nothing we can do to change something that was statutorily mandated, but at the same time, it helps people to be able to read it, understand it, and note that there was a change. So this one falls into that category of substantive changes, not just minor technicalities or something. So that's my comment.
Craig? Thank you, Seth. Craig, do you have comments on that?
I think, this is not, it's a recent policy. You see, it's from 2021. So it's not urgent that we get it approved. So I'm fine if you wait for the second read. That we do distribute it. I want to find out a better way, possibly through our technology, to distribute it and have people sign off that they received it, because I think that could become an issue that we make sure. And we do the training more often than every 3 years. So we're in compliance with what they're asking us for.
All right. I mean, I didn't think there was much, there's not like there's anything we can do about the changes regarding these statutes, but if it's not, it's not urgent, so I'm good either way. Maureen, do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we might as well wait. There's no reason to, hurry it up. As Dr. Cook had said, if we have the time, we might as well take it. There's a reason that they have the second read, so we might as well take the time when we can, although we like to check them off our list and get them done and move on as fast as possible. If there's no need, we don't need to.
We do like to get them checked off.
I know, but it's probably, it kind of reminds me now that I'm thinking about it, that we might as well do those second reads unless there is some type of urgency to it.
Okay, so are we all good then with with waiting, doing the 2 reads on this one?
Yeah, that's fine by me.
All right, so moving on to 5113, student attendance, truancy, and chronic absenteeism. The policy and the accompanying administrative regulations are revised in light of guidance from the State Department of Ed regarding mental health wellness days. Regulations are further revised in light of Section 16 of Public Act number 22-47, which requires boards of ed to include provision of notice to the parent or guardian of a child who is truant. The notice to parents must include information concerning the existence and availability of the 211 info line program and other pediatric mental and behavioral health screening services and tools. The act also requires that beginning July 1, 2023, a school mental health specialist to conduct an evaluation of truant students to determine if additional behavioral health interventions are necessary for the well-being of the child. Regulations include this requirement beginning July 1, 2023. So the policy 5113 is very short, and I think that the legal references are the changes that occurred to it. It was just recently revised on April 5th, 2022. So we had already done this. So the revisions are, again, due to the changes of the public acts. I did have a question though for Dr. Cook on the regulation. If you look under 81, that's where they added letter B, mental health wellness days. I just have a question because I know that the excused absences, you get 10 for the student. And so I just wanted to, it doesn't actually say that the mental health wellness days, which they get 2, if it counts in the 10 or if it's in addition to the 10.
So kind of a headache with that, and this is multiple times from Tom Mooney. He presented to our administrators. It was this August, and this was one of the topics we talked about. Is it's a change. So you count it as part of the 10 unless the student needs to go over the 10, and then it can't count against the student, if that makes sense. So for instance, if a student has 8 days absent and then takes their 2 mental health days, so they're at the 10. And then if they take another 2 absence days, they can go to 12, but they can't take 12 regular absence days. So it's kind of a little tricky, but we have a system. And already has a one-off in terms of absence days where they have the day where you can go visit colleges, where that's not charged against you. And so you can go on a college visit and come back and play sports that afternoon or go to your vibe or whatever the case may be. So they already have a system for tracking that, and it's working well from what I can tell. So it's a little nuance.
So I'm guessing then, like if a child had missed say 8 days already and then they took a mental health day, it would probably trigger that letter saying you've reached 9, you only have 1 more before, you've run out of your 10. But if they actually use the 10, they would still get the 2. I'm just wondering if this could be clearer, for the parents and the students,
it's hard. Like that was a somewhat lengthy discussion we had with him because it's really kind of tricky. Right now, and it has, I don't know that all our families and students know about it. So it hasn't been as
the high school knows about it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. And I think we appreciate the concept, but we also know attendance is important. And, so it's kind of a balance. And we, like you said, we talk to families if there's the absences and we have to watch for loss of credit. So it is a little tricky.
So then you don't want it to say that the 2 mental health days do not count towards the 10 because they kind of do, but they kind of don't.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think any clarification we could do is in communication to families because they're not necessarily seeing the reg. It's more, the communications or, the student, communications.
Well, the way it's in this, I guess the way the statute has mandated it, really it may not be applied against the benefit of the student. You know what I mean? Like, we have to give them that. So I don't know that mentioning it or not mentioning it is gonna make a difference. We still have to apply the statutory principle, which is, as long as they're mental health days and claimed that way by the parents and student, whatever, then it can't work against the students if they're, at that 10th, 11th, 12th day.
So then also it says, the student shall not, no student shall take mental health wellness days during consecutive school days. And so does that also mean a Friday and a Monday?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I guess I just have a question then. If the high school has already been granting 1 day for like college visits, that sort of thing, is that now folded into the mental health wellness days? Do high school kids have like a total of, I guess, realistically 13 days that could be excused?
Yeah, it's kind of separate
Okay.
from that. Yeah, we didn't want to take anything away based on a state law.
Right. Okay. All right. Just, again, for question's sake.
Yeah.
So I guess the policy as it reads, well, this is the regulation, but as it reads is as clear as it's going to be. And if there is any question from a parent, they would just have to discuss it with the administrator.
Right.
Okay.
Can I also ask, is there any connection? I didn't see it and I apologize, but there's nothing in there about restricting the days on which it can be used, like so that they don't fall during exams or anything like that, right? I mean, a student, if they need, they can take the mental health day on an exam day and then just have to do the makeup exam, right?
Yeah, it's not in the regs. I think students try and avoid that, knowing it's a half day for exams at the high school. But yeah, I'm sure, too, at the middle school or during the year when they might take it, if they have 5-6 classes, they're probably missing a quiz or a test or something, potentially. So yeah, but we have pretty good systems from what I've seen in terms of, for makeups for students or, allowing them. It's just a matter of timing.
So I just to clarify, we cannot say that they get the 10 excused absences plus the 2 mental health days?
No, that's what they do get. Yeah,
But
it's
we're
really
not
tricky.
saying
Yeah,
it
so
like that.
yeah,
right?
so we would count it as an excused absence until they got to the 10, and then we would tack it on top. So they can actually go to the 12.
We
It's
just
just kind of,
don't really want to say that.
Yeah. I mean, because it says it without saying it so explicitly when you look at line 87 through 89, because it is saying that the mental health and wellness days shall be excused when the student's parent or guardian gives permission, regardless of the number of absences a student has accrued in the school year. So it doesn't, explicitly say it's a 10+2, but it is saying that they don't count towards truancy reporting.
And why not just say it? I know we don't want the students to take the extra days, but if the policy is what it is, why not just say this is what it is?
because if they don't go beyond the 10, we just kind of wrap it all together in the under 10. Yeah, it's really I think a function of also our student attendance systems and things like that. Talk to other districts as well. They're kind of handling it the same way.
Okay.
I'm guessing though that, that it's an automated system where it counts the absences by the student. So if they hit 9, you get a letter saying you've only got 1 more left for the year before you need to have things well documented or whatever. And so I'm guessing that if you had 7 and then you did 2 mental health, you're still going to trigger that letter, even though you would still get 2 more.
Right.
So, and honestly, if you get the letter and they're like, oh, it's, mental health days, you're probably going to get a call anyway to clarify. But, if this is a regulation, so we don't actually vote on this.
Okay.
But I just wanted to clarify that and and make sure it was reading the way I was thinking it was reading. But I think also the difference would be if you are thinking of it as like, oh, I get, 12 days and not 10 plus 2. Well, if you're sick, you can be sick multiple days in a row. It counts as sort of like one incidence, but you can't take 2 mental health days in a row. So it's treated differently. So maybe that's why.
I don't know, because I mean, just in our instance, our son was out for 5 days, and on his report card, it was listed as 5 absences. And they were all back-to-back days. So I don't know if it's necessary. You're saying it's counting as one instance?
No, that
Well,
would come out of the 10, right?
They count the individual days, but I
Oh,
think
okay.
that because it's one sickness, I think if you end up having more, it's not counted against you, like, oh, he's been out 15 days, like now he's truant.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, they
5 days.
understand it's one illness, one instance.
Okay. And then there's nothing that would preclude somebody, it doesn't seem, from like abutting a mental health and wellness day against a already planned break from school, like spring break or winter break or something like that.
Right.
Okay.
And then I had a question on line 295, because it's a note from Shipman and Goodwin, says, note state law mandates notification and monitoring, blah, blah, blah. Boards of ed are free, however, to extend the application of monitoring and intervention procedures to students at all grade levels. So I'm just wondering, is that left into the regulation, or, is that,
That would come out.
okay. And are we applying it to all grade levels?
Yes. Yeah, and we're measured on it. We try and communicate, work with families, just the importance of attendance.
Okay. I think that was all the questions that I had regarding the policy and the regulation. Did anybody have anything else?
Mm-mm.
So with regard to policy 5113, the changes were really with regard to the legal references. So if we wanted to, we could fast track this one, but we don't have to if everyone wants to let it ride. Thoughts?
I mean, again, I would just advocate that if it's a statutory change, then even though we're bound by it and we have to accept it anyway, still a substantive change. And so, we should stick to 2
So
readings.
this was actually revised April 5th of 2022. And this particular revision that we are going to be revising is only the legal references. So the Public Act on line 18 is changed to 22 to 47 instead of 21 to 46. And line 20, line 22, it's all the legal references. There's nothing within the policy that's changed.
So that's not substantive. It's just literally changing the references. Okay,
right.
I apologize. Yeah, then that, to me, that you can do on one reading.
Yeah, I think the substantive changes are all in the regulation, which we don't vote on, but we were just discussing. So I would recommend that this be a waive the second read. We can just tack it on to the rescissions. It's just that it wouldn't be rescinded. It would just be revised. If everyone is okay with that.
Yeah, fine by me.
Okay. All right, and then the last policy we have is 5120.3. I think I accidentally just put away, which is student attendance, truancy, and chronic absenteeism. No, sorry, I just did that one. 5120.3, health assessment, screenings, and oral health assessment. Shipman and Goodwin revised the policy to conform with Public Act number 21-95 regarding the implementation of vision screenings and Public Act number 21-121 regarding the reporting requirements for children with a diagnosis of asthma. Under the new law, districts must report on a triennial basis the total number of children having a diagnosis of asthma at the time of enrollment in grade 6 or 7 and in grade 9 or 10. rather than grade 10 or 11 as previously required. Did anybody have any discussion about that? Some of these changes also were the same as the other one where they changed him or her to the student, he or she to parent or guardian. There were those changes, but there was, more substantial changes to this because of the changes in the statute. But I didn't have any other notes or thoughts on the changes. Did anybody have anything that they wanted to discuss?
No.
This would be a 2-read. Thoughts, notes, comments? All right.
Nothing from my end.
So then going, just go back to the beginning. So the policies that we proposed for rescission, all 5080.3, 5090.3, 5090.3.4, 5090.5, 5090.10, 5090.11, 5090.13, 5100.3, 5100.6, 5120, 5120.3.1, and 5120.3.2 are all proposed for rescission, and we would recommend, if the committee wishes, to waive the second read and just rescind them with a 1 read. Are we in agreement on that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so we will move that forward to the board, recommending rescission and a waiving of the second read. Then the policies for review, we are recommending to the board to revise and accept policy 2240, 4119 as we amended tonight, and 5120.3 with 2 reads, and then recommending 5113 with a waiving of the second read. All in agreement?
Yes.
Excellent. Does anybody have any further comments or discussion about policies tonight? No. Do we have any public comment, Wendy?
No one.
Shucks. Okay, so then I guess we covered everything, and we're done at 4:22. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, Diane.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.